Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tap Into Your Creativity. I'm so excited to be here with you again. We are joined by guest artist Agathe Bouton. She's joining us all the way from Philly, and I can't wait for you to meet her. She is an incredible artist, printmaker, monotype artist. She does textiles. She'll tell us all about it. I know, Agathe, you're there, so if you want to just request to go live with me, otherwise I can request to go live with you. Here we go. Just going to request, and hopefully she'll join us real soon. I'm so excited because, oh, and there she is.
I'm here. Yes.
Oh, welcome, Agathe. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. Oh my God, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. I'm such a big fan of you and your artwork, and I've gotten to know you just a little bit, and you have a beautiful soul, and it just comes through all the way through and through in your artwork. And I just wanted to say welcome, and please tell us a little bit about yourself. But actually, before we do that, I want everyone to know that you're my 81st artist on Tap Into Your Creativity. Wow. So I cannot believe that we're here today, and I'm still working at this, and together with my army of artists and generous artists like you, we have donated over 283,000 meals. Wow. Which is incredible. I feel really amazing, and I couldn't do it alone. So thank you for joining me in this incredible endeavor that we're in. So welcome to the program. And again, please, let's start from the beginning. Who are you?
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with that program and be able to help with the little I can do. I love the work behind you. Is it one of your paintings?
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
It is. Thank you.
Beautiful. So yeah, so I'm a French printmaker, mixed media artist living in the US. So I moved in Philadelphia late 2014. Previously, I was traveling the world with my family, mostly for my husband's work. I left France actually 17 years ago. So that's not new for me to be in a foreign country. And we're here today in my studio, which is actually in the basement of my house, but it's a cool basement because it's opening on the outside. So I have a big window, a door, and a door. So it's really easy when I want to receive some collectors, visitors. They don't have to go through the house, which I'm quite happy to have that studio in the house. And I decided to set it in the house when we moved here because my children were still a little bit young at that time, and I found it quite practical to say bye-bye to them when they were going to school, going straight to my studio, don't have to commute too much. And as soon as I could hear them coming back from school, I could quit my studio basement and go upstairs and help them. So now they are teenagers and a bit older. I might want, maybe soon I will take another space, but until now it was very good to be here.
You might have a little more freedom. But before we even start going into your studio, let's go back to Paris. Yes. So you grew up in Paris, and I mean, I don't think that there's a better place to be in an art related form, right?
Yes.
Like you're surrounded by incredible architecture and art and museums and cathedrals and just everything that, you know, your walks must have been just, I don't think you realize when you're there.
Exactly. You don't realize at all. No.
You probably took it for granted because you were
there.
I
know. No, for sure. You realize as soon as you left your country and your culture and you start, you know, travel over the world. And, you know, but still, you know, I was extremely blessed and happy to live in amazing countries where the culture was for sure totally different, but there is still a very strong connection and so much things to explore and see that I wasn't really missing too much France. And to be totally honest, I started to miss France as soon as I moved to the US. So it might seem a bit, I don't want to be impolite, but there is a bit like, and I guess it comes with your age. You know, I'm much older now, and I guess I miss sometimes the way of life in France and the, you know, having to, you know, the restaurants and the yeah, I don't know, the Paris vibes that you don't necessarily got here in big cities in the US. But anyway, so yes, I studied art school in Paris. Well, I had the chance to grow up in an artistic family. My dad is a painter and sculptor, and he mostly built his career on public art. So as a kid, I was helping him, you know, giving him those little mosaic pieces. And so every summer we had some big public art, I don't know the word in English suddenly, but things happening, and he had to work 2 or 3 months on site to do his mosaic wall, because he was doing a lot of murals too.
Oh, wow.
Me and my brother and sister were going visit him and just basically spending all day with him and visit and helping him. So as a kid, he would just help him a little bit, but as a teenager, I was spending days with him, just, you know, doing like his apprentice or intern. So that was pretty cool, I have to say. Wow. My mother used to be a textile designer. She basically stopped working soon after she had her children, but she studied art too and textile design. So it was in a way quite natural for me. And of course, I had both of my parents helping me in my choice of studies when I reached that age, when I had to after high school, in a way, you know, decide what kind of college, university you want to do, and etc. I was also extremely blessed at start. I started my art studies at the same time that I was entering high school. So at that time, there were a program in France and in Paris. It doesn't exist anymore, but a long time ago, I would say, there were some. There is only 4 schools in Paris where fine art school and applied art school, and they had a program specific, because there was only 1 class, so it was really small. It was only 30 kids, but they had a program where they could take the children at the age of when you enter high school. Actually, high school in France is 1 year later than in the US, so it was at the age of 15, 16, and you were doing 4 years of full art practice, and wow. You could stay after longer, and it switched into a kind of a university degree. So I had to do a competition for that. So basically the year when I was a 9th grader, I was at that time just living outside of Paris, and I was taking public transport twice a week and going to that school to get ready for that big competition at the end of the year, because basically we had to have a whole day of doing different kind of art exercise activities, and at the end we had to go through a judgment panel, and I was selected. To my surprise, I was selected in that really specific place. So I was in the 30 kids selected for 1 class, and I wasn't so sure, because, you know, as a teenager, you don't want to be too much different than the other, and all right. Of my friends were going to all the traditional high school path, etc., with a baccalaureate at the end. But me, I was already totally oriented to, in a way, in a career path. And I was a bit like, well, I'm not so sure. You know, you don't want to be different. But I guess because my parents knew that and had the same type of experience.
Well, they were a huge influence in your life. So it was kind of like a natural procession for you to go into the path.
And as I told me at that time, they said, you know, it's amazing that you had that competition. It's amazing that you have already the desire to do that, and also the goodwill. So just why not trying it? You know, why not doing it? And I'm the only one. We're a family of 4. I'm the only one who's done that. My other brother and sister done some extra art, classes in their curriculum, but mostly to help them to gain some good mark, you know, for the high school diploma. But so I went straight at the age of 15 in that program, and I just loved it. I found my world, and I was like a fish, you know, or in a pond or in the sea. Yes, I was so happy. Yes. I was extremely happy, and I had to commute because the school was quite far. So I had to wake up like 6 in the morning and take public transport to be sure to be at school at 7:38. Wow! And I was doing that. I've done that every day for 4 years, and I just loved it. And what was amazing during that that time, it's the two first year of that program. You have to go to the different workshops that the school offer you. So I went through photography and sculpture and ceramic, and of course there are also some workshop dedicated already to kind of professional career, like in textile and graphic design and fashion.
You were really exposed to everything.
So I was exposed to everything, and after those, and I had the basics, the fundamental, with of course classes of drawing and painting. That was, we know, the fundamental, and color. I remember I had a class all about color. No, that was amazing, and the school was quite small, and we were all mixed, different age group of people.
Does
so there
it
was a lot.
exist?
No, it doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. No, that changed now. Now everything has to be after high school. I think one of the, maybe, I think it stopped maybe 5 or 6 years after me, but it was a program who existed for a long time. But I guess it's linked with the Ministry of Education in France. And at some point, I guess they wanted everything to be more general. I don't know, but you know how things go, you know, things change, and some, unfortunately, not sometime for the best. But for me, it was perfect. So I've done that. I was lucky enough to skip the last year. So basically after those 2 years, when you gravitate around all those different workshops, you have to choose, you know, different topics that you want to explore more. And at the time I was into painting, color knowledge, I don't remember the name of that class, and into textile. And again, I had a bit of a tricky time when I was loving everything, so it was difficult for me to decide. I loved graphic design, and I was loving textile and fashion.
I kind of want to do everything. Don't you feel like you would want to go to school for that right now, where you can get a little bit of everything?
And what happened to me is after I graduated, because I stayed later for a second diploma. After I graduated, I wanted to stay, and they kicked me out. They said, "No, you're ready to go to the world." I said, "But I want to stay." It was like leaving my family a bit.
Yes, I mean, I think that we should open a school, Agathe. And I think we should do something like that for adults, where, you know, because there's so many artists that feel like they have to choose where they are, or that they have too much information. But I think if you know a little bit of everything, I think it just informs you to be a better artist of what you really want to be.
Yes. So the thing is that there are some evening classes for students who were not accepted in the school, or adult classes. So later on, when I started my career in textile design, in fashion industry, I came back to my school for printmaking classes. I think at that time I was just missing so much the school energy. I wasn't surrendered. I guess I was very happy in what I was doing, but it was a full-time job. And I guess I couldn't have the freedom to express totally myself in that kind of industry, because there's always some things that you must do or cannot do. And I was, you know, there's definitely things that you have to stick with for the industry purpose, and that you don't have the freedom as an artist to do it. So I came back after I graduated with a degree in textile design, and I was soon after very lucky to work in a
fashion industry?
Fashion industry, but not for the with I house, like a big fashion brand. And I stayed 2 years with them and it was magical, because I was in a very old fashioned house in Paris. When you've got, you know, the fashion you have to head for the fashion shows at the same time. It was magical, but it was at the same time quite frustrating for me, because I had to do what they wanted me to do, and it wasn't always, you know, what I wanted to do. But of course that is normal in every job, you know. You have that
exactly. But I'm sure you learned a lot.
Yeah, it was my first job, and I was just 20, you know. Because I was really lucky to graduate at an early age. So I've done that for a couple of years, and I switched from home interior design. And very early after, I became the art director for the brand. So I was amazing. But again,
Wow.
after few years, I was definitely missing the time in my studio. I had at the time a 2-bedroom apartment in Paris. So I had 1 bedroom, it was my studio. So every evening and weekends, I was working on my own project. So this is the time when I took those evening classes in printmaking and totally fell in love in printmaking. And I knew printmaking before because in my curriculum, I had to do some. I guess I was just too young to appreciate it, or I was, I don't know, it's how things happen. But I was definitely mature enough when I took those classes. I had the chance to have an amazing teacher who wasn't very he was very professional, sorry, but it wasn't too classical in the way he was teaching printmaking. So when I said printmaking is a very large word which includes different techniques of prints onto paper. So there's lithography, screen print, etching, and in the etching world, there's intaglio, relief print. So I was much more into relief print, not relief print, but intaglio, etching, and relief print, which is woodcut and lino cut, that into lithography. I've done that like 10 years later. I've done a 6-month workshop in the studio, again, evening classes, because I was, curious to learn that process too. And I've done also other workshops in screen print. But I definitely live in love with the most traditional version of printmaking, which I call, for me, it's the most traditional one. I don't know. I might be wrong. But anyway, that was the one who suits me the most and who suit me my own desire and in my creativity. So I've done maybe 3 years of evening classes, and at the same time I switched job. I decided to work as a freelance, be able to find an amazing studio in Paris, a proper artist studio, which was at that time a sculpture studio. So the ceiling was, I don't know in feet, but it was 10 meters high. It was huge with windows on the ceiling.
Oh, it sounds
magical. It was amazing. It's, what, since I traveled, I never had the opportunity to have such a big studio again. So I bought an etching press. I saved money on the side. I bought my etching press, and I started to work and create in this amazing studio. So, and at the same time, I was still doing a bit of textile design on the side as a freelance, just to basically pay the bill, because at the beginning, when you're just a young emerging artist, you still need some a bit of income on the side.
Yes, you do.
And
you do whatever you can.
Yep. Yes, and I was in Paris in my studio, and I was doing some open studio. I was very lucky to very early on be represented by a gallery in Paris, and this is how everything started, really. Yes, in Paris. And
then you moved out of Paris, and you were all over the world.
Yes, and then I married, and everything happened. And then I met my husband. And my husband at the time was working for an international NGO. And we moved to London 17 years ago for a couple of years. And from London, he was working as the head office of an English NGO. And at that time, they asked him if he wanted to join the office in Myanmar, Burma, which is in Southeast Asia. So we left thinking that it would be for a couple of years. And we will go back to Europe, and mostly in England because his job was in London. But we stayed nearly 5 years in Burma. And from there, our journey started. And from Burma, we went to West Africa, in 2 countries in West Africa, then Middle East. And we were in Istanbul just before we moved here in Philadelphia. So that was a big gap.
What an incredible life and journey.
Yes.
And you were exposed to all different kinds of culture and traditions.
Amazing,
and artwork and materials. I'm sure that you were able to, as an artist, soak it all in.
Yes.
And
I was
so
really
much.
blessed. I always say, that was the best thing that could happen to me. And as an artist, it's such a great experience because you have to, it's a way that you won't necessarily choose to do it yourself, but when you project into that and you don't really have the choice, or you don't have enough time to think about it, you just jump right into that kind of life. we were moving every 2 or 3 years. So, you know, I had to keep up and have the energy to work out for the family, to settle very quickly, to be sure that the children were okay, etc. And at the same time, be able to work on my art. And
just finding that balance, I'm sure, was very trying for you, to be a mom, a wife, moving from different countries which were not something that you were familiar with at all.
No.
Not even the, you know, the language was different, everything was different. And so, but you know, now looking at your work, and you guys are in for a treat, because Agathe is going to show us around her studio, and you're going to see all the influences that are coming through in her work, because I think that your past has informed you on your work today.
Yes. No, for sure. I think it's, I guess I already had the character into me, or the energy, or the potential to be able to do that. Sometimes we reflect with my husband, and we say, that's amazing. We knew that we will travel so much. We knew that all those sort of things happen, because, you know, there's a kind of a glamorous way of, it's great, you travel abroad and you lived in an amazing country. There's also a lot of things happening in those countries. So we face a revolution, the monk revolution in Burma. We face a big typhoon, hurricane, would damage half of the country. We face a civil war in West Africa. You had some huge demonstration in Istanbul, repressive demonstration, you know. So as some of our friends said, you are sometimes cursed, you know, because every time you move to a country, there's a measure things happen. But I think it's just because we moved in, you know, countries where are not, you know, as developed, for sure. Non-developed countries are not as developed as here in the US or some countries in Europe, for sure. Again, you know, you can't predict the future. You can't predict what will happen. You have to go with the flow. And it was my philosophy, and it's still my philosophy since I started my journey abroad. It's, you know, just, you know, embrace what you've got. Just, you know, do what you can. And this is it, you know, there's, you know, and I'm sure I can do more. I could have done less, but until now, I found it was an amazing journey. And as you said earlier, it definitely shaped my vision of my art practice. It's definitely shaped my series of work. I guess I would have never developed as many different series and experience so different process. I always kept and stayed into printmaking, because it's definitely a passion for me, and it's something I deeply love. I had to definitely adapt myself, adapt my art practice. I had to move, you know, when I left my studio in England, when we left to Asia, we left only with suitcases. So I just left everything behind. So I just took my chisel for wood engraving, wood cut. At that time, I wasn't willing to wood engraving, but I thought, you know what, that's the only thing that I could bring. I took some jar of ink, printing ink, and that was all. And so during a year or two, of course, Burma is an amazing country, so there are so many things going on. So I was visiting and basically
soaking it all in.
Yes, I was like digesting, you know, all that new things. But after that, you digest, you can definitely, I'm not sure it's a very nice gesture, but just give it back, you know. So I was in a way transmitting, give it back onto paper, all what I was, ingurgitating and etc. But that was just, amazing. So I had to, you know, definitely, it took me a few months to be able to cope, not having my press with me. But as I said earlier, you know, not being in the comfort of your studio, not being in your comfort zone means that at some
stage you have to adjust.
Yes.
And that's, you know, and it's interesting that you're saying that, because I think that last year we had to adjust. We all had to adjust.
Yes.
And for people that, you know, had a studio, but like for myself, I had a studio outside of my home, but I couldn't get to my studio. So I needed to figure out and kind of pivot and just accept the situation and make the best out of it. And I think that the best thing from human beings come out of when we least expected.
Yes.
And I saw this last year. I saw this humanity come through from people wanting to open your studios and share your inspirations and talk about your feelings, you know, more than ever before. And so I think that, you know, I think there's something to say about putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and things, magical things can happen if you let it.
Yes, no, you have to open widely, I will say, and don't be afraid. And, you know, believe me, there is some time when I was scared. Or of course, you always have those doubts of, I am doing well. Is that worth, you know, is the work worth the energy? Is it worth being exhibited, etc.? But I think when you let it go in a way, you have nothing to lose. And most of the time you gain,
to lose,
you know
and
what I
so
mean?
much to gain.
Yes, exactly. So much to gain. And so it was a process. So from a country to another, I was always, because every time I was leaving a country, I was leaving, I would say, a series of work behind, because there was so many difference between a country and another. So what I was doing in Burma, I couldn't really do it in West Africa. Of course, I was keeping the same kind of technique. I was maybe keeping the same color chart, but my work was adapting in a way through that long journey to a country and another, until maybe I moved here, because here I was able to ship back my press. All my studio came back, all my archival works came back. So, but again, because I was without that etching press for such a long time, when it came, it was sitting in my studio for maybe nearly 6 months before I was able to work with it again. That was really strange. So it took me maybe 6 months or a year to mourn the loss of it. And after, when I again, I was a bit like, wow, I don't know if I'm capable to work with it. You know, that was really strange. Really strange. Until I decided, okay, this is it. Go now. You know, you have to go. You can't just look at it and walk around and don't touch it. You know, I was a bit like, wow. It's like when you have a newborn baby, first time child, and you'll be like, wow, you know, there's a lot of adjustments.
Yes, there's a lot of adjustments. So how long have you been in Philly now?
So it will be 7 years in September.
Okay. So it's the longest that you've been out of Paris somewhere. And you think that you will be there for a long time?
So for, you know, I don't know. So I can't predict the future again. I guess for sure I will be here for an extra 4 years. My younger daughter will start high school next year. So we're sure that if we stay until she's graduating from high school. After, we can move in another part of the States. My basically husband quit his job 3 years ago and is now doing freelance work. He's doing consultancy, different companies. So we can basically be based everywhere.
Oh, thank God.
So, you know, we don't necessarily need to be here. But the flip side is, you know, when I moved here, I was like at the beginning of my career. I felt I was like at the beginning of my career again. I had to, of course, restart my studio. A new series of work, but I knew nobody here. I didn't know the artist community in Philadelphia. So I had to redo all the work that I used to do 20 plus years ago in France, you know, and I found it difficult.
I can relate, because when I moved from Mexico, I had no one. I did not know anyone. I started going to school in a different language. Everything was very hard. It was tough. But like I said, you know, I wouldn't trade anything. I think that I feel very blessed, like you, and very thankful. And so I think this is the best time to switch it and take us on a gallery tour, because you guys are in for a treat. So yes, if you want to switch your camera around. And
so I can switch. Let me just move some few things.
Okay.
Because it's on the way, and to switch, it will be like that.
Okay. Perfect.
So I'm sorry there's no sun today. I usually have bright sun in the studio. So this is, you know, I have two parts in the studio. I've got the etching press.
Wow.
Facing the natural light, which is great. And I've got big working table or station. And I have the place here when I do all the X mixing. So this is
show us all your supplies there. What are your favorite things?
So, my favorite things. Okay, so you know what? I'm not very traditional in printmaking. I'm using big jar of offset ink. So those are from France, you know, because you buy a wholesale. I'm nearly at the end of it, but at the time, because I didn't use them a lot when I was traveling, you know, I had them back from my storage in UK. So I'm using big jar of ink, and it's, you know, the price is much better than using some small of the traditional charbonnet.
Can you order them from here and then they
No.
get to your home? No.
So those little charbonnet, which is the most traditional ink for etching, the professional printmaker who do etching series print for artists will use that kind of, but that is nearly the same price as a big jar. So this is what I'm using. I find difficult, you know, when you have something that you work with it, like the brand of a paint or a charcoal or something, when they suddenly switch for something different, I find it extremely difficult to, because you don't have the same, I don't know, the end doesn't recognize the ink or the product that you're using. Anyway, it's funny. But, so I'm in the process of trying different brands at the moment.
Can you go in a little more to your wall so we can, and you can talk about that here, so we can see? Yeah.
Here it's samples of color and texture of woodcut prints that I'm doing at the moment for a commission for big pieces for hotel in Arizona. So for the client, I was doing a kind of a color chart on the wall, and I was showing the different print aspect. I'm working, and I can show you a bigger one. I'm working on a paper from Burma. So basically, this series it's related to a series I developed in Burma in 2006, 2007. So that's not new. Inspired by textile I saw in the northeast part of the country, and that series I've done maybe 60 pieces. I sold all of them. I had only two that I kept in my collection. You know, I had a private collection because I like keeping some work for myself sometimes, but there's always a collector coming who want to see it, and you show it and they buy it. So
yes, of course. So it almost looks like a mandala type of thing.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be that kind of thing. I've got the bigger pieces here on the wall. And when you go closer, it's extremely light, the paper. So it's
what kind of paper do you use?
So it's a paper made from that eastern north part of Burma. You can only find it in Burma, and I was working only on that paper. You know, when I came to Myanmar, and I was living in Rangoon, there was no things to buy for artists. There is no fun art papers. There was nothing at all. Nothing. When I was
really, I'm so surprised. I would have thought that you would be filled with all incredible different inks and papers.
No, I was gifted with that paper. That paper was amazing. It's an unmade paper made with a bark of a tree. You can find only on that region.
Wow.
And the city and the region, when you find it, it's only in one place in the country called Pindaya. And I, as a tourist, I would say, I came there and I saw most of the city at some paper making workshop. And I saw those paper and I bought a bunch of them. And I still have a few, a tiny bit. So I'm
you're so lucky that you still have that.
Yeah, I'm so lucky.
So that print that you have there, is that more of a monotype or is it the wood cut?
So it's a wood cut and monotype. So it's mixing and it's all about superposition. So the first print is here and I've got the second print in blue and I've got the third print in brown. And I'll add the last one here, who's more like monotype. You see the paper is so fragile. So after a while, when you rub the brayer on the plate, it gets damaged. But it's creating some special effect. And later on, I will show you. I usually add some stitching, like little repair onto the work. So that is work in progress. That was one of the small samples that I sent to to my client, and he agreed that it is a color chart he wanted. And I
love
tried it.
How long does it take for one of these if you're putting it through so many times?
Why it can take few days. It can take just to engrave the plate. It can take weeks, sometimes
Well,
months.
yeah, that the plates are a whole different
The
thing.
plate
But
is
I'm
so different,
saying,
and to print, you know, it can be pretty quick as soon as you have the right color chart. But here I'm printing by hand because the plate is too big for my etching press. So it takes a while. It can take a while.
Do you have by any chance the wood block so we can see it?
I don't want to show it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No. I have a lot of people who come just to say, we want to see that. I say, I have my little secret on working on it.
I love that.
So I will show you different other kind of technique later on that I was working on at the beginning of my career. I don't want to.
So let me ask you something, Agathe.
Yes.
Once you have that, do you mount that into a wood board, or what do you do?
This is what I'm doing. So no, before it used to be, because I really like the lightness of the paper. So when I had that big show in the only gallery in the very smart hotel in Rangoon, I found a carpenter on the side of the street, again, you know, because there's no framing shop. So I found that guy was working only with thick wood, because that was the only wood you could find. And he made me some amazing wooden box. And the print was just sitting at the bottom of that box with no glass and etc. So some of my collectors there bought it and just asked for a glass in top of it. But that was amazing. But since I moved here, and I was working a bit on top of it when I was in West Africa, when I moved here, I had a show a couple of years ago. And the only print I had left, which is, sorry, I just moved what I've got in the front, which is that one. Sorry, the light is not so great here. But so I mounted it on a canvas, on a large canvas. So I just glued the paper. But here you see what I was doing on Sandra. I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of stitching.
Yes, we can see the stitching, yes.
The stitching, you know, and that, so for some of them, I leave them plain, like here or here. And some other, when the paper gets a bit damaged. But this is why it's interesting, because you're never 100% sure of what the final result of the work. So I'm adding some pieces of fabrics, stitching, and yes, it's a very enjoyable work. I always enjoy working on my work.
Yeah, it looks very therapeutic. You know, it really does. It looks very therapeutic.
And I have a big piece here that I have to mount. So because I don't have any more of that paper, I just found some very nice Japanese paper. So I mount that paper onto the canvas first, and after I glue the print. But that paper is, you know, I host the clients, my clients. I said, you don't want to leave that paper in a box like that, because it will be amazing. And no, she wanted, no, I don't know, you know. You know, you have to be a good client, and that's
I know, but that paper is like so
the paper is just amazing. It's a wonderful paper,
and it seems like it soaks the ink really well.
It soaks the ink very well, and it's I will post some videos later onto my social media. It soaks the ink very well, and also it's very I know it looks fragile, and it can be fragile when you rub too long on top of it, but it's also very flexible. And I was doing some clothes made of it. So this is things I was doing. So this is my tick. This is one of my ticks that I kept. So that guy was doing tick box like that. And on top, I was displaying the work. And here it's flat, but it's some prints on both sides of the same paper. And here I was just, you know,
it's fascinating.
using my sewing machine, and I was basically sewing it's all inspired by traditional clothes in Burma. So it's a little traditional tunic, which usually has a lot of embroidery and pattern. But here I kept the idea of the weaving quite abstract. But all those stripes, it's my interpretation of weaving. There's tiny, tiny pleats here, and and there's both sides, and So this one at
And
the moment is still
the
in the
blue
studio.
that's coming through is just so elegant and beautiful.
And that's also because of the pepper. The pepper definitely gives life to the print. You know, there's two elements here. There's really different. So I really loved working on that pepper for sure. Yes, no, it was really, really nice. It was a great series. So I'm happy to be back at working on it. Well, now I have to adapt on Japanese paper. So I'm doing the
And you
print.
like kozo paper? Is that what you like?
Kozo paper, I used it recently in a series of work I've done at the beginning of the COVID lockdown last year in last spring, and I'm still working with it. I just, found some great company here in the US. We've got different type of unmade Japanese paper. They're from the made in Japan, but there's some relator here, so I can retail place. Sorry, so I can find. So they're all different. This one is very light but a bit shiny, so I might not use it anymore. This one is always a mix of kozo with another fiber. But for
so you never know what you're getting. Is that what you're saying?
The thing is, since the pandemic, there's a lot of problem between shipment between Japan and US.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of shortage of.
Is that your inspiration board?
Behind me, I have different inspiration board. I love collecting things like exhibition cardboard, photos of countries where I travel. So there's different things here. I've got the photos I was taken in Burma. You know, when you want some ice water, they basically have a big ice chunk of ice with a filter, and they give you ice water like that in a glass.
Oh my God.
And
wow.
That's a small, tiny print I've done from a photograph somewhere in Brooklyn. And that's my two children when I was small, my street in Myanmar. So, and there's things from, the size of the building in Rangoon when you knock down a whole block of building and you've got the neighborhood wall and you can still see the remaining of the doors and the mosaic, from the from the bathroom.
Wow.
There's a bit of Philly, there's a bit of Istanbul. There's, I love ceramics, of course, African sculpture. So there's, plenty of things. A friend was doing some amazing light, Philadelphia. Another friend was doing, very nice, still alive. My daughter, me, and I have another one here. I have another one here. So on that one, it's more inspirational. So it's work I'm doing.
Oh.
I started to cut my monotype. I think that I might maybe weave them together.
I love that. Is that paper or is that fabric?
No, it's all paper. It's all paper.
Wow.
It's a jewelry, a necklace, a part of a necklace I've done for a match series called Deuxième Peau, which I made last year, and I had a big show in a gallery in Philly. So there's some of my exhibition postcards,
Oh,
I used to have more, but the problem is they cover all my studio wall, and after I don't have space to put my proper wall. Crazy.
So right there, since you're right there,
yes.
You guys, we want to show this piece that Agathe is donating today for Feeding America. We're asking $200 for this gorgeous print monotype that Agathe will talk about it. She did a whole series of this during the year of COVID, and they are just magnificent. They're 11 by 8, and again, we're asking $200. 100% of the proceeds will go to Feeding America. And please, if you're thinking of investing in your art collection, think of buying this today. You will be helping 2,000 people get a meal. So if you're interested in purchasing this, please DM me or Agathe, and we will get back to you with instructions on how to move forward. But we really hope that you consider buying this today and helping others. So Agathe, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so I have some samples of more of those prints. Unfortunately, they're framed, so there's a bit of reflection. So at the beginning of the COVID last year, I was doing some very large abstract work for a show was supposed to happen in Philadelphia. And the gallery wall was huge, and they asked me to do big pieces. So I was working on that when the pandemic hit us. And I was, as I guess all of us, a bit desperate and anxious and stressed of not knowing, you know, what was happening really. So I left everything. I couldn't, you know, work anymore on those kind of abstract work. I left everything and I started, it was the beginning of the spring last year. So it was in March. So I guess it took me all month of March to try to figure out what I will do. You know, I guess we were all a bit, yes, I can't say worried, but definitely a bit shocked by that whole situation. I was worried for my family in France, for my relative, but so it took me maybe a month. So early April, I started to work in my neighborhood, to take more time working in my neighborhood. And I suddenly, you know, I don't know, sometimes you walk, but you don't necessarily take the time to look really around you. And I started to notice the rebirth of the plants, and of course the trees were all blooming.
You literally stopped and smelled the flowers.
Yes, exactly. But I, you know, instead of working 15 or 20 minutes, I was working an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a day. And I guess I started to pick up plants on the side of the work. So not, of course, I didn't pick the nice flowers from the garden bed of my neighbors, but I don't know. Yes, I know, but I guess I was much more interested by the weeds or the grass. Those plants who are not the most beautiful one will grow sometimes in the middle of the concrete, you know. So I started to pick them up. And as one day I was in my studio, I had all that different range of plants in front of me. And I just decided to start to work with them. So they all went through the press. So I started with red color, very bright. I don't have any more samples because I sold them all. So I've got none anymore. But I started with red color when I was really into my palette of color, which since the last maybe 10 years is really into blue and earth color and gray and terracotta and etc. So I went into bright red and oranges, but I guess I needed a very strong color to maybe bring back positivity and energy to the world, and anyway to my brain, you know, and to my
yes, for sure,
to my own environment.
For sure.
So I started that way, and at the end of the spring, when the summer hits us, I decided to go deep indigo, and this is when I started to work on Tukoso. And I guess there's a connection with that blue deep indigo colors that you find in Japan and in Asia, but also in West Africa. And I was always really strongly influenced with that indigo color. And I started, so at that time, the plants were high, you know, you could find much more different varieties of plants. So I decided, yes, so to just use them. It's tricky because I didn't realize we have a reflection here.
No, it's okay. We can totally see it.
Yes. Okay. So that just goes under the press. So I basically ink a plate of that deep indigo, and I just put my plants. I have a small video on my website that you can look at, and on my Instagram feed you can find a video when I show quickly the process.
Yeah, you should go and find it because you'll see the process. It's fascinating.
So it's a bit like the cyanotype. If you're a photographer, if you know photography and the technique of cyanotype, it's a bit of the same kind of process. It looks like the same result, but it's different. Cyanotype is much more precise in a way. Yeah. It doesn't give the same precision. Here it's a print. So I would say you can touch your hair, but the paper is very light. So the transparency is up in the paper. The paper absorbs very well the ink. So the blue is extremely deep.
It looks very rich. The color
is very rich. And what I play with, and I can show you on the small samples, I'm playing with the positive and the negative. So here again, the plate goes a multiple time under the press. So it's not only one go,
there's 2 or 3 goals. So the first time the plant will leave that white silhouette, which is like a negative.
It's lovely, yeah.
But after I'm playing out removing only some part of the plant, and it goes again under the press, and I've got all what the leaves left an imprint, I would say, some trace of
it
texture.
Looks like fabric, you know.
I know, and the pepper, and you can't feel it. The pepper, it's soft. It's really nice. It's
really truly beautiful.
Yeah, it works
so we
very
have
well.
10 more minutes, Agathe,
Oh
and
gosh, I have so much
everyone
more to show you.
Yeah, your plate and how you.
Okay, yes. So I've done a small table here to show you my plate. So this is a normal kind of pepper I'm using, which is an amul pepper. It's a pepper made in Germany for mostly printmaker. It's a 300 mcg gram. It's very easy. That pepper usually goes into water because when you do a print, the pepper, not a monotype, it's different, and maybe not onto a kozo pepper, but usually you have to wet your pepper before to be sure that the pepper is damp enough to, with the pressure of the press, it will absorb a maximum of the detail into it. So that's one of the first, just to show you quickly, it's one of the first tiny prints in 97. So that's not new. I was doing some tiny illustration of like radish onto a plate, you know. I lost the plates, so I don't have it.
I love that.
And I was doing some little still alive. So that's the plate. So it's a zinc, it's not a copper. And here already I was mixing, there's a bit of etching that you find here. And there's a bit of mezzotento. So that plate was basically engraved by, you leave it in a bath of acid, and the acid will basically engrave the plate for you. So that's one of the techniques.
That's very cool.
I will be really quick because that's also one of my first series. I was doing kind of like drawing on the plexiglass sheet with a dry point. Plexiglass is extremely cheap. It's not even plexiglass. I think I just reuse some plastic. You know, it's what, you know, this is what I learned when I was doing those evening classes. But again, you know, it's because my instructor was extremely. So that's it's an etching plate into zinc, not into copper. It's a view of a Marrakesh building. You know, before knowing that I was traveling, I was already inspired by countries, other countries, and
wow,
and
look
so
at that. That's so cool.
And what I loved with printmaking and in my work, and it's really recurrent in a way, there's no black and white. It's always color, and there's always 2 or 3 color tones. So here I've got the sepia in the background, but on the top I have a thin layers of translucent, transparent color, will give that extra coat. And I will show you what I was doing. I was doing a lot of landscape. So that's this here, the plate is not finished. So you know, when you do a plate, you do some transitional print to see, because when you work your plate, it can be quite abstract and you don't know what you're doing. So you stop at some stage, you ink your plate and you print it and you see what's going on. So here it's a kind of a landscape,
and it's a mirror, so you would always get the like a mirror image, so it's not
exactly
right.
Yes.
So
so you have to check regularly. And this is the plate. So the plate here, it's what is a carborundum technique. So carborundum, it's an industrial powder, is an industrial diamond that industry used to basically polish in the heavy industry. You use that kind of artificial diamond powder. But in engraving, it was created by an American in the 30s, I guess, and by a French also printmaker. When you basically use that powder and add it with certain kind of glue, acrylic glue for me. And
I think your hand is on the bottom of the phone, and we can't hear.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay, perfect. Now I can hear you.
Okay, so I was working on that plate a bit like a bas-relief. So there's a lot of texture.
Yeah, you can tell.
A lot of texture, and using some different acrylic gel. So it's creating some very interesting texture. So as you see, you know, I'm not traditional at all in my work.
No,
I really
not
like to play. I really love playing. And here is to show you. Did I use you? No?
Ooh. Yeah, no, we're here.
Oh, I thought I lost you. Okay, so sometimes those kind of stage, I never threw them away. I keep them because sometimes I rework on top of it. That's the beauty of printing on paper, that you can
go back. And do you use
can go back.
acrylic or oil when you go back?
So I usually use acrylic, and here it's a mix. So here, sometimes I was printing onto canvases, not onto canvases, onto raw cotton. So here you can see just a tiny bit. So that was also printed in dark blue. And on top, here it's a mix of oil paint and acrylic. So just to show you that sometimes I like to really play, but there's always a component in my work with etching. So that's another work. That was a work when I was working in Paris, inspired by those demolishing building. You've got that, in big cities, sometimes in the States, when you demolish an old block of buildings.
Tell. You totally can tell.
You see, and this is the plate. So the plate is right here. Lot of texture again. Lot of things going on. And here, what I was doing, I was adding the technique of chine-collé, which means between the plate and the paper, I'm adding some collages of paper of different colors. So it's adding extra texture, extra color shard. And here's the plate is in kind of this light sepia, but on the top. And because I've got all that superstructure, it's a bit like a bas-relief.
Can you reuse it now? Is it in condition that you can reuse it?
Yes. I'm really lucky, because usually if you want to do an edition of print, you have to work on copper. Sometimes it's either on steel, so you apply a thin coat of steel onto your copper plate to make it harder and to be able to do edition. I never really done edition in my work, because what I love with my technique, it's just to every time with the same plate, and I don't have another sample here, but every time as the same plate, what I like to do is to do different color atmosphere. And this one, and that one, depending of if I use a dark blue or dark brown or dark gray, and if I use different color paper, every time it will be different. And every time I create something different. So for me, I always use printmaking a bit like to make a bit like to create a bridge between my painting work and the print, because originally I was trained as a painter, and I never really worked with as a proper painting on canvas. So that's another one. So this is a plate, and this one was just a sepia here, very basic, and I found it when I was living in Istanbul on a paper in my storage, and I decided to take it back, and I repaint I repaint on the bottom with acrylic, and I added collages of Asian paper on the top. So it's creating something deeper.
That we have to switch the camera, because unfortunately we're going to be out of time.
Too much to say.
Crazy. The hour goes too fast.
I know. Oh, I can't switch back. Yes, I'm here.
Yes. So where can we find you? Where can we find your work?
So you can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook.
What's your website?
Oh, so my website is under my name. So it's very easy. It's www.agathebouton.com. So AGATHEBOUTON. I can post it, on your feed later on. I've got mostly everything you need to know. I've got some small videos of me in my studio on my website if you want to look at it.
Amazing work. I can't thank you enough, really, for being here today. If you have any questions, just post them under my post and we will answer them. I'm sure Agathe or myself will answer you, and just consider buying this incredible piece of artwork today. And let's help people. Please DM me or Agathe, and we'll be in touch. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you back on the 23rd. I'm taking a week off. I'm going to be working in a residency, so I'll be back on the 23rd. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.